Greg loved the idea of this little sweet girl that was maybe about 4'11", spouting out all these obscenities at the top of her lungs while she was still short and cute and sweet. And of course, we all know Rose absolutely enveloped that character. And
she embodied Amy Blue.
Yeah, she did. But it's really funny because Jordan, it would have been Jordan, and her mother, Cheryl Ladd, pulled her out. She didn't want her to be a part of something she thought was so depraved.
All right, everybody, welcome to New Jersey HorrorCon, and I could not be more psyched to be sitting here with one of my favorite people on this planet, the total definition of yummy, James Duval.
Thank you, Bobby. I'm so happy to be here.
Jimmy, 3 times in 1 year. I should start playing the lottery with your birthday.
I'll take it. I think you're a winner.
So you've been on tour a lot this year. Can you tell me what you've been doing with that?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to be on the tour with Greg Araki, and we did a trilogy of films in the 90s, Totally Effed Up and The Doom Generation and Nowhere, and Greg has been given the wonderful opportunity to restore them. So to a degree, when we released those movies in the 90s, of course there were certain elements of the films that the studios weren't comfortable with, the distributors weren't comfortable with, so they had us cut out certain things that should never have been cut out of the film.
I agree.
Honestly. And on top of that, with the new technology you have now, you have the colors and you have the sound and the music that appears in a way that wasn't as recognizable, I think, at the time. So to have these films restored back visually and audibly to a very, to modern day standards has been for us a dream come true. And I think for the fans too, hence the tour that we've been on to get a chance to go out and present the films to our tribe, if we will.
And I'm lucky enough to have been to 2 showings, one in LA, one in New York.
We're lucky enough to have you come to our showings.
Thank you
so Bobby.
Much. I think it's so amazing that all of you guys, you care so much about what the fans think. And did you ever imagine that 25 years later you would be going all over the country and seeing all these different generations of people coming together for this movie you made 25 years ago?
I got to be honest, I never dreamed of that in a million years, but the reality of it is to be here and be a part of it has been actually more moving and means more to Greg and myself. And I know to all the cast of Totally Effed Up and Doom and Nowhere that we've been a part of something that speaks to the new, not just to the old generation, but to the new generation.
Yeah.
It's something that Greg was saying before. It's we don't make our movies for everybody. Our movies are sort of on the outside. And it was the music we listened to was trying to go out and find members of our own tribe. And that's who we make the movies for.
I mean, ever since I first saw these movies, having to dig them up in the olden days of the bowels of the internet, But I just completely resonated with all of them, all of the movies. The characters, they're the opposite of a cliche, and that's what clicks for me. These movies have a really big part of the LGBTQ community, and the characters that you all play, they're not cliches. They're not two-dimensional characters the way that Hollywood deflects that usually. So how do you channel yourself to throw yourself into those kind of characters?
Well, it's actually quite simple, to be honest, in the sense that it really is. Greg wrote these incredible scripts with these incredibly rich characters that, in many ways, not just myself, but I know most of us actors identified with in a strong way, and not just a piece of them, but in their entirety. And so to have someone out there who's writing scripts with the characters like that, in a time I think that nobody else really had the courage to write characters like that, he gave us the ability to not only play these characters, but as individuals be free with who we are and who we were and who we were to become.
Throwing a bit of yourself in as well. So how did you meet Greg Araki Was it through an audition, or did you guys meet like out in LA or something?
Yeah, we met in LA. That's a great story. So I used to live in a place called the South Bay or Redondo Beach in Los Angeles.
Okay.
I used to drive out to Hollywood to record shop to look for music. So they had these import record stores, and that music wasn't easy to come by at the time. And it was sort of like, kind of we were saying before, going out and finding the music that you like, and while you're finding the music you like in the middle of Hollywood, you would meet people within your own tribe who listened to the music you listened to, kind of had similar outlooks on the world that you did, and were going through the same struggles. And there was a cafe I used to frequent at the time called the Double Rainbow, and Greg used to frequent it there as well.
Okay.
And I had recognized him in there before for at least a few months, and I loved the idea that at least what I thought was a kid in school doing his homework was actually Greg writing his scripts and working hard on his films. And
Okay.
I had just come out of high school, and I was working very hard at trying to find a job, and I was kind of directionless, and but I was driven, and I was looking for purpose. And Greg somehow saw, not necessarily that I was an actor. Well, I think he saw that I was an actor because I think he mentioned that I was showing pictures that I had just gotten taken 8x10s of headshots.
Okay.
And so he thought, well, he's an actor, and I'm writing these scripts looking for actors, and I think he's got an interesting look, so I'll ask him. And he didn't know at the time. I think it's kind of funny because I wasn't aware at the time. He's like, yeah, so he gave me the script for a film called Totally Effed Up or Totally Fucked Up, and it deals with some very serious LGBTQ issues, and especially for the time. I think AIDS was still a big subject that people didn't want to talk about, but our friends and close family were dying from it. And he just thought he would take a chance, he would roll the dice and send me this script, not aware if I would identify with it or not. And it just so happened that I identified with it in such a strong manner that it became very organic for me. And I think, and then again, not to speak for the other actors, but all the other actors involved felt the same way too. We're all 18, 19, 20,
Yeah.
coming into this new world, learning about ourselves, and Greg gave us the liberty and the space to do that within, I think.
So that was your first, like, you didn't want to pursue acting. That wasn't like the goal, the end goal here. It just kind of like fell into your lap that way.
Well, to be honest, I was pursuing acting. I had done some live theater.
Okay.
And I had done some film acting classes, and I was interested in it, but I'd kind of given up on the idea, to be quite honest. At that point, I thought I'm not related to anyone in the business, and I didn't have money, and I didn't. So there's that old adage, it's who you know, and I knew nobody.
I feel that.
So I thought, well, I'm just going to try to figure out what to do with my life. And at that point, Greg literally stepped in and said, no, I think this is what you're going to do with your life.
You're like his Edie Sedgwick in a way.
Yes.
His Andy Warhol.
I'd like to think that anyway, which is the most flattering thing for me, to be a part of something that inspired him, and at the same time him inspiring me.
You've been in so many of his projects too. Like, what keeps you coming back, and what keeps him bringing you back?
Well, I know for me to answer that's a very easy question. I'll always come back to anything that Greg does, anything that he asks. I trust him implicitly as a filmmaker, and I love him as a friend, and I can't imagine anything in the world that I wouldn't do with him. And I'd like to think, without speaking for him, that he thinks the same thing about me.
I would imagine so, considering you keep coming back.
Yeah.
And we love to see it. We love to see it. We can never get enough.
Oh, well, thank you, Bobby.
So you did Totally Effed Up, and then you did Doom Generation, and then Nowhere, and those are the trilogy. Do you have a favorite of the three, or is there like a love for each of them in their own way?
There is a love for each of them in their own way. I think it's kind of apples and oranges in that sense, that they're all part of this teen trilogy, but they're not the same character.
Yeah.
They're the same universe, certainly, but different stories within that universe. But that being said, and loving all the films in a different way, I think that, And I only say it totally effed up. I don't call it totally fucked up. I'm not afraid of saying that. But just the idea was that when we were making that movie, which happens to be my favorite of the three, he wanted something you couldn't put on a marquee, but that you could still release. Mm-hmm. And he thought the idea of putting totally F asterisk 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 up, people would know what that meant. But at the same time, we were being subversive about it. And I think that, especially for that day and age and at that time, being subversive was very much in the cards for us as a way that we liked to do things. Sort of like the Doom Generation being the first heterosexual Greg Araki movie was certainly very subversive in that sense that, well, yeah, it is that, but it's more than that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a lot more to it than that.
We love that too.
Yes, we do.
And another thing I love about Greg Araki's movies is the casting is always perfect. Be it main roles, the cameos. You have these big stars coming in for one day of work for this.
Perry Farrell's one of them. Yes, he's certainly one of our big supporters. I know we were all excited when he said yes. And it's funny because there's a story that Greg loves to tell, and I love it too. So when we were finishing the movie and we were in post, and we needed to clear the music licensing. And at one point, we had a screening for Perry Farrell and for Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails. Mm-hmm. And it was so funny because we screened the movie, and it was just the two of them in the theater. And Perry sat in one part of the theater, and Trent sat in the other. And they kind of didn't really, at least from Greg's memory, didn't talk to each other. But all we know is we finished the movie, finished screening for him, and they both signed off and said yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which was, to us, really what it was all about. But it's also kind of really cool to think that both of them sat in a theater, in a screening for themselves just to watch that film.
Yeah.
And Perry went so far, actually, so when we came out in 1996, when I think it was Lollapalooza 4, or I can't remember
I wasn't
the number.
There.
But yeah, it was 1995, I'm sorry. It was 1995. And Perry created what was called the film tent. And once a day during the entire set of Lollapalooza, there was a screening of the Doom Generation.
To be a fly on the wall at Lollapalooza 96.
Which I thought, again, was super cool and such a big honor and kind of really punk rock to have this movie playing in the middle of the cinema, what they call the cinema tent.
Though. It definitely fits that whole genre.
Oh, very much so. Years later when, we had the Coachella, and Perry still does the Lollapalooza in Chicago at Grant Park, all that, Greg was saying, and I was saying the same thing with him, I couldn't agree more that it seems to have become what was such a small subculture in the 90s when we were making these films, to walk around in Lollapalooza or Coachella and see all these beautiful kids, boys and girls, dressed up, listening to everything we listened to, loving their life and embracing who they were, was really the ultimate for us, because that was the kind of the world we always dreamed of. And so to see it in action 10, 15, 20 years later is wild.
That is really cool. So Nowhere kind of, sticks true to its name. It was Nowhere for years. And now it's finally coming back. Better late than never, I guess.
Yes, you can't keep a good movie down. It just goes to show, or a good song.
But that was the first one that I saw, and that did change my life as a 14-year-old gay teenager, and being able to relate to your character, just trying to figure yourself out, minus the boy that I exploding at the end, of course. But
figuratively, it's kind of like that, right? You find the perfect love and it blows up in your face.
Yeah, exactly. Before, right in front of your eyes, before any. Yeah, exactly. So that kind of is a really good metaphor. I never really thought of it that way.
I mean, I think, well, you know what? When I remember reading the script, I'm like, oh, that's it. That's my life again. Greg gets it so well and does it. He does. And he gets it so right. And all I could think of was when I was reading the movie, I'm like, well, that's it. That's it. You find the perfect love and it blows up in your face. Who in this room hasn't experienced that? Because I want to know your secret.
Very super relatable. Do you have any favorite, can you tell me a fun story from the set of Nowhere Just like something that you haven't really talked about ever.
Well, I do talk about it, but I talk about it with fondness because it is one of my favorite stories. Is every single actor on that movie, from Ryan Phillippe and Heather Graham to Gibby Haynes, who plays Juji Fruit, was so happy and passionate to be a part of the movie. There wasn't anyone that was there just because it was, my agent said I need to do this movie, or this is the kind of movie I need to have on my resume. Everybody that was there was very excited to be a part of the project. And so that being said, we had, we only had one camera, I think at a time, maybe two cameras a few times for some complicated shots. So you had to kind of rotate all the actors in and out. So there would be all the actors present on the day, even if we weren't filming together. But what's really kind of fascinating is when we weren't filming, all the trailers that were in the back of the lot were called these things called triple bangers. And a triple banger is just separated by this fake wall, fake curtain.
Okay.
So every actor removed that fake wall and made those triple bangers into one huge trailer. So instead of having 4 or 5 triple bangers, which is 3 rooms each, they just became 4 or 5 trailers with all the actors hanging out together, singing songs together, changing, doing our makeup. It's kind of like when you do theater and you go backstage in theater, everyone, like half of everyone's naked. But no one cares
that
because
sounds fun.
Yeah, because it's what we're changing and trying to get, we don't have any time, so we're trying to get ready as fast as we can for the next, piece of the play, or in this case for the actors. But it was in that sense that everyone could be naked, literally and figuratively in that sense, and not have to worry. We all were also comfortable with each other. And it was like one big party.
I was going to say, that sounds like a party.
It was definitely like a party. I mean, we weren't drinking and smoking, which would make it more of a party, but we were singing and playing music and telling stories, and it was so easy to really just put your guard down and get to know each other on that script. Because, I guess for anyone who knows Greg's movies, it lends itself to that kind of openness.
Yeah,
so
totally.
No one felt like they had to have their guard up. And so to be around a large group of people, any group of people that matter, and then for them to be some of the people they were, and everyone's inhibitions are put down. And
I feel like that shows in the film too. Like everybody's like camaraderie and like everybody just like bonds so well together, and it shows on the film.
And it really, I'm so happy to hear that, because that really, it does carry over when you're performing, and then it carries over into real life beyond the film, where you've now shared something with these people and you have this bond that that maybe for the rest of the world you have to have a certain type of etiquette, maybe in a certain room or a certain group of people. You don't have to worry about that with any of us in there. We love you and accept you for exactly who you are, and we're going to be exactly who we are with you. And that kind of liberty and that kind of freedom, not just on the film set, but to be able to walk away and carry that with you, is, I think, a very rare quality that I hold very close and very dearly to my heart.
It really does show in the film, though, as well, like where you were saying, like the characters as well, like the sexual fluidity is like all over the place. It's there, it's present, but that's not the focal point. They're actual people, but you're not focusing just on their sexuality. But that's there.
And I'm so glad that you said that, because that's what the utopian world was for us. It certainly wasn't that in the 90s. And we have barriers and we have boundaries in front of us now. But I think we've come so far from them to where we are now. Like we were saying, what Greg likes to call the Coachella generation.
Yeah.
Where people can be like that in a large group. This isn't a subculture anymore. This has become main pop culture.
But he definitely like paved the way, because like there wasn't anything like this like beforehand. Like when I say like a cliche, I mean like a 2-dimensional like character that's like gay, like say like Jack from Will and Grace or Damien from Mean Girls. Like they're just there for a laugh. But you have Andy, and like I related to him so much, like just a little punk teenager.
One of my favorite characters ever, yeah.
Just like a little,
so real.
Exactly, it was so real, and I like related to it so hard, like at that age too. And that's like something like I needed that at that age because it wasn't there. And like it was so hard to find, and I feel like I'm really lucky to have found it at a time when I needed it.
actually very touched to hear that, because I think in a lot of ways, Greg's movies and us speaking here about it tonight, it's all because of Greg. It's all because of Greg Araki.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. We love you. And I say that in all the screenings that he can attend, but I always give credit to Greg, because I know certainly for me, being a young, confused teenager at 18, meeting him and becoming a part of his stories and a part of his family, really, and a part of the legacy, liberated me, and he freed me in a way, not just as an actor, but as a person, as an individual. I didn't have to be ashamed of myself for the people that I loved or the things that I did.
That's awesome.
And I think that's a big lesson, I think, for everybody in this world today. They could learn a lot from me. They could learn a lot from this. They could learn a lot from Greg. He's very humble, and he would just shake his head, but
he
honestly,
really
he's so ahead of the curve. He's always been
so humble. Him and his iPod.
He's just, we never thought we'd be talking about it 25 years later, because it was just an honest expression of how he felt, and I think how most of us felt at that time, and still feel now.
Like, I didn't think 15 years ago, that would be happening. That was only a dream for me 15 years ago when I found this. For it to, be re-released and, be so celebrated. Because I couldn't find it anywhere. But, now, I met so many people at both of those screenings. I've made friends and stuff like Greg Araki movies, bringing people together since 1992. 87, excuse me.
I love that. It's so true. I certainly, I don't want to get heavy, but I will say that I didn't know if I was going to make it to 21.
Damn.
Yeah, and then I met Greg, and then I started working with Greg, and I found my purpose, and it was more than just being an actor, certainly. It was about being happy with being a person and being happy with who I was.
So, after being, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, it just made all the difference in the world.
You were kind of an indie king for a while, too, but then you also, like Parker Posey is the indie queen. You are one of the indie kings. And I mean that with all the love in my heart.
Thank you. I'm such a huge fan of Parker.
Oh my God, same.
I love Parker.
I was getting to the casting and the cameo. She was also in Doom Generation,
She was, and for many years I was and I still feel that way. I'm I want to be the male version of Parker Posey. I want to do what she's doing, but as a guy.
Well, here I am telling you that's exactly what has been the case the whole time.
I was, I think, now I think just, it's even evolved from there. So now I'm just happy to be a part of this legacy where whatever Parker has achieved and has done over all these years is I can certainly say that it was a model for me. I mean, ultimately. And, she's such an incredible individual, and she's so cool, and she's so talented. And
in everything, I'm still waiting for the Oscar she has not won for every single film.
It's coming. It's coming.
Josie and the Pussycats, you deserved Best Actress.
In Superman the movie, when they did Superman Reborn, she's so incredible. She's just everything. She's got the Midas touch, and it turns into gold.
Well, how was having a sword held up to your dick when she was in the movie?
Gold. I would like to think she turned it to gold. I mean, that's just my own sort of. But it was the same thing again. I still will never, forgive my phrase. I'm just going to rephrase the movie, but I'm going to lop his dick off like a chicken head.
The way she says it with such disdain
is
so perfect.
So brilliant.
And then not just her, but then you've got Beverly D'Angelo playing your mom.
You keep abusing yourself like that, young man. One day it's going to wither up and fall off.
Is it it's just fascinating. Heidi Fleece, the madam, was the store clerk. Justin Wen, Margaret Cho's first movie. He's discovering people. Everybody, Jordan Ladd. You had a fun story about Jordan Ladd, didn't you?
I have a wonderful story about Jordan Ladd. Believe it or not, before Rose McGowan was cast in the Doom Generation, it was Jordan Ladd. And Greg loved the idea of this little sweet girl that was maybe about 4'11", spouting out all these obscenities at the top of her lungs while she was still short and cute and sweet. And of course, we all know Rose absolutely enveloped that character. And
She embodied Amy
Oh,
Blue.
yeah, she did. But it's really funny because Jordan, it would have been Jordan, and her mother, Cheryl Ladd, pulled her out. She didn't want her to be a part of something she thought was so depraved. And I remember it was unfortunate. She'd called Greg on Christmas Day and was like, there's no way my daughter's working on this movie. She's not going to do it. And Greg just looked, on the phone with her was just like, all right, well, when this movie comes out and the actress is on the cover of Interview magazine, you're going to be sorry. And sure enough, the movie came out, and who was on the cover of Interview magazine? Rose McGowan was on the cover of Interview magazine.
Well, she certainly made up for lost times.
Yeah, well, she certainly earned it too. That's my Amy. That's my Amy. Forever my Amy.
One of my favorite lines of Nowhere, I always say, is, so what are you going to wear to Juicy Fruit's party? And she's just like, clothes.
Yeah. Well, there's the other line when they run into the 3 drag queens of the store. It's like, when I run into Juicy Fruit, I'm going to rip off his balls and use them for beef earrings. And all I can think is, ow. Ow.
Yeah, like the one-liners of this movie, you'd rather have your ball hair singed off with an acetylene torch.
That's actually, I didn't say it earlier, but that's one of my favorite lines in films, period. I remember, but you read a Greg Araki script, and there is nothing else like a Greg Araki script. They are works of art in themselves. And I remember...
They're visually stunning. The soundtracks are amazing. The casting is just a chef's kiss.
They really are. Well, I really do. His movies are available his scripts are available online. I think you can get them through the American Cinematheque.
Interesting.
Definitely through the Academy Museum that we just had the trilogy screening of. But, if you get a chance, do yourself a favor and read those scripts, because they're works of art in themselves that he communicates in those scripts in a very Greg Araki fashion. And I think that if you're a fan and you read those, there's things that's meant for the reader that the audience will never hear. For example, when Jonathan's character X is going to see us lose our virginity in the tub, and he's reaching down his pants, and he's gonna start, masturbating while he's watching us. And there's this great moment in the script where it's like, he reaches down to his off-screen cock, and then all of a sudden, in parentheses, off-screen, because this is a family film, of course. And so you're looking at that subversiveness while you're reading it, and you realize that it's not only in what you're going to be watching, but it's in everything that you read. It's in every essence of what he creates. And because that's just a part of him.
But there's also the mystery of, who is X watching? Is he watching Amy, or is he watching Jordan?
See, now you're hitting into the magic and the more of the subversiveness of the film, because who are you watching? Are you watching Amy? Are you watching Jordan?
It's pretty obvious who I was watching. But seriously, these movies have had such a big impact on not just my life, but so many other people's lives. And I just think it's amazing how you, Greg, and I wish everybody from LA would have came out to New York, but whatever. Well, but I love that they all come out and still support the films, say hi to all the fans. It's amazing to see people in costume coming to the shows and stuff.
Well, it's really amazing. Believe it or not, right now, it won't be until about 2 o'clock, 1 or 2 o'clock, 1:30 our time here. But there's there's a Nowhere screening tonight in Los Angeles at the New Art Theater.
That's where we met.
And I do believe it's Greg Araki, Nathan Bexton, Sarah Lassay, Jason Simmons, Guillermo Diaz, Jordan Ladd, maybe Rachel True, Kathleen.
Should we FaceTime them later? Should we totally do that?
I'm not averse to that. All I can say is I'm very happy to be here with you all, but I know that they're all bummed out right now, and I love them for this, that I can't be there. So I'm really bummed out that I can't be there either. So maybe it would be a good idea, because I have to go away for a just cause and spread the word here on the East Coast while they're spreading it on the West Coast. So maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to do that a little bit later. But for now, during this panel, we'll send them some love, everybody. So love to Greg Araki and love to the
all
cast
of you guys.
Nowhere. And everybody who came out to the New Art tonight. Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't be there, but we're here celebrating you on the East Coast tonight. and we couldn't be happier that you're celebrating us on the West Coast.
So I've been hogging Greg for a hot second. I mean, James. Wow, sorry. Does anybody have any questions for him?
That's perfect for the setting for this film. It is very appropriate.
That's actually what the headline for Nowhere was. 90210 on acid.
Yeah, 90210 on acid, exactly. That's a good question. I've been very fortunate to be, like, pretty much every Greg Araki movie, not pretty much all of them, they all have great soundtracks. It's interesting, the progression, because when you go from Totally Upped Up to Doom, it certainly gets a little bit darker. Because we were making the movies with a little bit higher budget, we were able to obtain songs we weren't able to obtain early on. So in Totally Upped Up, we're very fortunate to have bands like Ministry and Ride and the Red House Painters. They gave us that music for free, to be quite honest.
Wow.
And so Doom Generation coming around is where we started paying for licensing. And I have to say that I'm really quite a fan of the music in that movie as well. But it's much darker than as the first two movies. Then as you get to Nowhere and then eventually Splendor into Greg's later movies, he likes to describe Doom Generation as like a Last Tango in Paris for kids. It's like his 9 Inch Nails film. So it's angry, it's dark. By the time you get to Nowhere, it's a little bit happier. The music becomes dancier, becomes a little bit light. I mean, it's still dark elements, for sure. But the movies themselves are a little bit poppier. So I do like both types of music, but I do tend to lend myself towards the darker themes, you know, I'm much more a fan of. So Donnie Darko, which is not related to Greg's movies, but in that sense, like, I love the soundtrack to that too, because the songs were so dark and covered the same area, you know, of Echo and the Bunnymen and Tears for Fears and Joy Division and the Church. And so I tend to be a big fan of those. But I think when it comes to any of the movies I've done, Greg's soundtracks are the best, by far. Because he does know how to capture the darkness, he knows how to capture the dancier, lighter songs, and he knows how to really embody everything in between. So then you have this huge range that you can play with.
Yeah,
and
that's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah, and your characters live within it.
And all the soundtracks are available for purchase.
Yes, they are. They're available on CD, and not that I'd normally plug unofficial bootlegs, but God, those unofficial bootlegs are so cool. Clear blue vinyl and clear vinyl, so pick them up if you can. You know, we'd like to put them out, but I think for now, re-releasing those soundtracks as much as we'd like to is a bit of a licensing problem at the moment. So also, if there's anybody that knows a record company in the audience, please see me after the panel, because we would be willing to put them out again.
So other than Greg Araki's movies, we'll wrap this up in a second. I was just wondering what the difference was between, like, the mainstream films that you did and, like, the indie films you did with him. Like, the major differences of transitioning from, like, Greg's sets to, like, a Donnie Darko set or, like, the SLC Punk set.
Well, you know, a good example, believe it or not, I don't think most people know this. When I was shooting Nowhere, I was filming Independence Day at the same time.
Okay.
So I shot those movies concurrently. So to give you an example, I would go to this little $1 million set in Los Angeles and wear my ripped jeans and have my earrings and my hair parted, and I would play dark for about a week. And then I would wrap out on that film set, and I'd take my earrings out and change my part and get on a plane and fly to this $70 million set where everything was, at the time, life-size and built. They were all practical effect. So Area 51 existed. They built it. And it was so massive, it took 15 minutes to walk through it. So in that sense, they were both extremely exciting, and I couldn't be happier to be a part of both, but they were so different, not just in scale and size, but in the feeling of what we were making, that it became very, in a lot of ways for me, rather simple to play and embody both, because I think that when moving from the sets themselves, they lent themselves to that environment. So, one minute I'm on, it's 90 degrees in Los Angeles in the summer, and Greg's directing without his shirt on, and everyone's partying in the trailers in the back, and we're doing this kind of crazy alternative music-driven film about kids with all their inhibitions kind of cast aside. And then I would go to this other set where they have $70 million. And you could have the biggest things you could ever play with in your sandbox. And everybody on that is also very happy to be there, to be quite honest. So it was not difficult to tell how different they were, but they were similar in the experiences in the sense that everyone in Greg's movies to everyone in Roland Emmerich's movie for Independence Day couldn't be more excited to be a part of the project, couldn't be happier to be there. Were bringing their A game to the table and helping you do everything you could do to do the same. So I've been very, in that sense, I just want to say that I'm a victim of circumstance in the sense that I was very fortunate to be a part of some of these two movies that couldn't be further apart from each other. And at the sense, Roland Emmerich had this tremendous amount of respect for Greg Araki. And Greg respected Roland. So I know at the one point the studios didn't want me involved, and Greg and Roland did everything they could to make it work for me, because they loved that now Roland was being subversive and casting this kid from these little punk rock movies that the studios didn't want.
How can anybody be against casting you in anything? It's beyond me.
You're so sweet. And it was their support really that carried me through. And of course, I think since then, as I was able to say, if you're not working on a large movie, and I've worked on a few after that were fun, but they weren't aware of Greg. They weren't aware of that kind of subversiveness anymore. So they're certainly on a mission to make these movies the best they can, and I respect that, and I'll do my best to bring my A game to the table for them. But I think, with Greg's movies, there was never a question of trying to bring the A game to the table so much as everyone's just trying to do the best they can, and we just hope and pray that someday people get a chance to watch what we made.
I mean, your wish obviously came true with all of these sold-out shows around the United States. So,
that's also been a really big blessing for us in the sense that we bring these movies out, and we don't know how people are going to react to it, but it's something Jonathan Scheck said I think in Sundance actually. When we made those movies, and I mean even for Greg himself, we were so young, we didn't know how to take it in. And so now that we're older and we've been working for, 2-3 decades, and we have a perspective, we can truly enjoy this for everything that it is and that it represents. And it certainly hasn't fallen short with, I know, Jonathan and Greg and myself, and Andrew, our producer, Marcus, our distributor, and I think Rose, who hasn't had a chance to be at the screenings, but I think for all of us, we appreciate it much more for what it is than we ever could before. And so that, again, we couldn't be more thankful to be a part of the movies. I couldn't be more thankful to be here as a part of it at the New Jersey Horror Con, at the Showboat Casino Hotel. And I mean, for us, it's the ultimate. It is what it's about, making these movies, putting them out, and then coming out to celebrate it with everybody.
Well, I also couldn't be more thankful for that as well, and having you here with me tonight, Jimmy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for being here, Bobby, and thank you all for coming. And for anyone on Instagram that's watching this on Instagram Live, if you are in the East Coast area of Atlantic City and New Jersey, please come out and see us. Say hello. If we've met before, come say hi again. I'd love to hug you. And if we haven't met, we love to make new friends. So come on down.
We're here all weekend, and he gives the best hugs.
Thank you, everybody. I want a hug for that.
Have a great night, everyone.
This is Ross Marquand, and you are watching Fandom Spotlight, which is awesome. So like, share, and subscribe. Oh, and have fun and follow your fandom.